So in this video, I want to talk about the state of the Guild Wars 1 economy. So in the game, right now, I would say like we have a fairly slow economy. Like it can take a very long time to sell items that aren't commonly traded. So if you're trying to sell like an OS item to get close to what its like theoretical value is, like what it should actually be worth, it can take quite a lot of time. You have to put it on like Legacy for a few weeks. Some people will bid on it. If you want to sell like a BDS, even it can take you. I've seen people spend like weeks selling in Commodon like a Bone Dragon staff or a Froggy, and these are items that people want. Like people, the most commonly traded items, as far as what I can tell, from like in terms of like rarity, are like Froggies, BDSs, and some Celestial Compasses, but not many. Like most Celestial Compasses are kind of like worthless, but some are worth quite a bit. So even when you have an item that is worth a lot and everyone knows it's worth a lot, like BDSs have kind of standardized pricing where like it fluctuates like plus or minus 50 ectos depending on the rec and the attribute. Even with standard items, the market is very slow. So I would say the current state of the market is kind of slow. I mean, you don't have new players coming in. There isn't like an active effort from ArenaNet to bring new players in or to bring players away from Guild Wars 2. They don't even have like an actual team for Guild Wars 1. It's like a skeleton team that like works on it when they feel like it, from what I can tell, or that works on it in their free time. There is money to be made in Guild Wars 1, but they would rather just have all of their eggs in one basket with Guild Wars 2. Maybe they have another project they're working on, so they don't feel like it's worth it to invest time in like quality of life updates for Guild Wars 1. But the economy is slow. Here's one thing that I've noticed, like from buying and selling items. When you're buying an item, it can take just as long as when you're selling it. So when you're selling an item in Commodon, for example, and let's say it's even like a Froggy, like a Q9 Dom Froggy that's in demand, you're basically waiting for someone who has enough money to buy that thing, to buy it, and who has the interest, obviously, right? So like, in order to find that, you're probably going to be waiting for like a week or so. It's going to take some time before you'll find your buyer. And this is true of like most OS items as well. So even when it's a common item, it is still a buyer's market when you're selling and a seller's market when you're buying. So when you're trying to find any specific item, it generally will take you a long time. Like I was trying to buy a Tormented Fire Staff. There's a lot of these in the game. It's very common. A lot of people are on Fire Magic. I could not buy one for 50 ectos. I had to eventually buy an arm brace and convert it. But you just really can't find things that you would think are common. I was able to find like a Tormented Scythe for I think 45 ectos. But even then, it took me a few days of buying it before someone finally sold it. So like certain items are traded more than others, but obviously the more expensive an item is and the rarer it is, the harder it is to sell, because you have to consider there's only so many players that are interested in that item and can afford it, and they probably already have it. So in the case of like a Dom Froggy, for example, if a player is like rich enough, they probably already have it. So like if like there's not enough new players becoming rich, buying these items to justify the new creation of these items. So honestly, I'm actually kind of surprised like BDSs and Froggies aren't like tanking, because like there really aren't too many new players being introduced into the economy. Like in order for an item to be worth money, it has to have a few things going for it. It's all about supply and demand, obviously, but it's more than that, because in the case of Guild Wars, there's also quality. So there's supply and demand, and there's like item quality. So like for example, a BDS that's Q9 Dom is worth way more than a BDS that's Q like 13 Smite or whatever. Like the difference, even though the items are like both Bone Dragon staves, like the attributes and the requirements drastically change the value, and therefore, the BDS Q9 Dom is gonna sell for like 10 to 50x a Q13 Smite. So even though like we have all these items and all these items are being created and there's only so many players to buy them, these prices for like certain key items tend to be the same. It seems like it might have to do with power traders like buying them up and then like flipping them. That might be it. It might be people holding on to them, people using them, and so on. But I'm actually kind of surprised BDSs haven't tanked because like there's not really too many new players that are coming to the game. So when you have a static amount of players, roughly speaking, and just an increased supply of items, over time the items should decrease. But it's possible that players that are returning come back for a few months, buy these items, stop playing for a little bit, and then new returning players. Because this game had a huge population at one point, and people are constantly coming and going. So maybe we have like a simulated, like new player economy type thing, where like it's almost as if new players are coming because these are just returning players, but because they were never rich, and there's easy ways of making money now. They then go and grind out SCs, or maybe they have like a stack of Ectos, and then they start buying these items again, and then they stop playing. But I have to wonder like how sustainable the market is overall. It's kind of strange because like certain things, there's only like a few ways to actually make money from the game without trading other players. Most of the money you'll make is from trading other players. The only way to make money, like a high amount of money without trading other players, is probably ecto farming, because ectos are worth a lot to the trader. But if other players weren't also buying ectos, then the price of ectos would crash, and then it would no longer be a good money maker. So everything is driven by player decisions, right? Rune prices are a good way of making money. Like if there were no players, sup runes would hit like 5k. If there was truly no one playing the game and no one buying sup runes, the normal minor plus 30 health runes would tank to like 100 value. Major runes would hit probably like a K or two, and then sup runes would hit like 5k if like the player base just like drastically died off. So like a lot of these things hinge on people buying shit, right? Like how many sup runes does the game actually need? Like if everyone had a sup rune, a sup vigor on their armor, like getting more of them would become like useless at one point. So like there has to be some like threshold in the game economy where like these things start to tank value, and I think it's happening right now to some degree, because I noticed, and this could just be because of the hype about Mesmerway, but I noticed like Dom plus 3 was like 10k for a while, and Prodigy, Mesmer, Insignia was like 10k as well, and now they're both at like 3. So I think what happened there, and this is kind of like an indicator for what's to come with other items, is a ton of people realize Mesmerway is really powerful and really consistent in hard mode. So almost everyone in the game universally bought Prodigy Insignias and Dom plus 3 runes, which spiked the value up. And now that everyone's, for the most part, the active player base's heroes are runed, these are now stabilizing and going back down to maybe like 1k each. So there'll still be some demand, but it won't be as much demand because it was kind of recent that people started like spamming Mesmers and buying like mercenary slots to spam Mesmers. But that's a perfect example of like those runes made chest running more profitable, because if you chest run, you get armor pieces. You pull those runes off, and now you're making 10k per armor piece, which increases your profitability. So even though this seems unrelated to chest running, it's completely related to chest running. And it's also related to making money in general, right? Because if you get an armor drop, even just from playing the game, instead of that sup rune armor drop being, 10k, the sup dom, it's now worth, like 1k or like 500 gold. So I think we might be in a kind of golden age of the Guild Wars 1 economy, where right now things are stable, and right now you can make a ton of money pretty easily, and there's a lot of people have like stacks of ectos, stacks of arm braces. There's just like tons of money. If you join an alliance, like sometimes you'll just be given shit. Like I was given an arm brace and 50 ectos just for showing up. Some dude was like, come main guild hall, and he just gave me an arm brace and 50 ectos just for showing up. So like it's at a point where if you're a new player and you were just given 50 ectos, that's 500k. That's 500k like selling it to the trader on a good day. Like when you sell it to the trader for 10k each, like that's not a trivial amount of money. That's like 3 or 4 sets of elite armor. That's easily max weapons. So like even if the economy does collapse or crash at any point in the near future, like in the Guild Wars, like in Guild Wars 1, it won't crash in a way you would expect. Like, it won't crash where like everything will be too expensive and it'll be too hard to make money. You can always farm items, sell them to the merchant, which has infinite money, and make money that way. But what might happen is like ectos might crash in the future, like runes might crash, because like ectos and runes are based on supply and demand. I mean, it really depends on how much sustainability the game has long term for these things to retain their value. From what I can tell right now, arm braces are going up. They used to be 60 ectos. I think they're like slowly going up to like 61 to like 65 ectos each. But a lot of these commodities like arm braces and ectos drastically fluctuate. I mean, not too much. Like ectos are generally 10k each, but it really depends on how often they're created. Ectos, so alright, so arm braces are only consumed for tormented weapons, but I feel like there's enough tormented weapons in the game where if you wanted to buy one, someone probably has it and is looking to sell it. That's not true all the time, but there's kind of like a threshold. And for ectos, the threshold is how many people truly want obsidian armor. I'm not a huge fan of obsidian armor. I think some of it looks cool, but I was never like all about it. But the only thing that really consumes ectos is obsidian armor, so as more ectos are added in, I think theoretically it should collapse, but so far it hasn't for some reason. Like, it's been relatively stable, which is kind of impressive. But it's hard to say like where things go. Like, I think runes are going to crash for sure, because runes are a perfect example of something that's like strictly supply and demand based, where, you know, you see it through a merchant. And materials are this way too. But, you know, as more materials become available and there's less demand for them, they will crash. And if more and more people start ecto farming, for example, and if the player base like dwindles a little bit more, I could see ectos crashing. But it's hard to say that they will. I don't honestly, they've been going strong. They've been at 10k for like years, so that's actually quite impressive that a commodity has stayed this high. Because here's the other thing too, right? If ectos crashed, obsidian armor would be much cheaper. Like, if ectos were like 1k each, like almost anyone could get obsidian armor. It's kind of true that anyone can get obsidian armor now, but it would be more so the case if the ecto itself crashed, but I don't see that happening. But it's kind of crazy because I think like I think power traders are keeping ecto and arm braces high, and then other players have to like deal with this reality, which isn't a bad thing, because like ectos aren't increasing in value and like arms are slightly, but just because, you know, they're hard to get. Ectos are way easier to get than arm braces. DOA speed clear. I mean, anyone can learn it, and it doesn't look like it's too challenging. Like, it doesn't look like it's like, you know, playing like Super Meat Boy or something. But it's like, you know, it's something a lot of people don't want to do. Probably because they're afraid of it, you know, to be honest. Like, I don't even really think it looks that bad. I'm sure, and like most players could learn it, but it is much harder to learn how to get arms, you know, and it takes like 2 to 3 hours to get an arm, from what I understand. So this video is just about the Guild Wars 1 economy. Just a trend I noticed in like rune prices. So for example, if it turned out that Elementalist was the meta game, I have a bunch of Ellies for factions only build for fun. If it turned out Ellie was in the meta, then that would all like Ellie runes would spike, like, you know, or like let's say they buffed Ranger runes could spike. So this is true of anything. In this case, it was more like people adopted Mesmer Way, and they're like, oh, Mesmer Way is like viable. It's one of the best things. That caused the spike in the rune prices. Because if you're playing the game, let's say you actively play on like 5 or 6 characters, right? You have to rune like 30 Mesmers. So like if you buy 30 runes, like 30 Sup Doms, like that's gonna spike the price of Sup Dom runes. And then once those are used, they're pulled out of the supply, and the only way new ones are added into the supply are from people salvaging and selling them to the merchant, the rune trader, or from chest running and salvaging them. So it's a very fine balance, is like what my point is, and I think they did a pretty good job with the economy overall. I don't think like the economy's in a bad state. Like I was able to make like a few stacks of ectos just from chest running, which is crazy, and that's not even hard. It's like not even hard at all. It's like easy. Like right now I'm chest running normal mode, But I think overall, like for newer players, there's not really a downside. There's a ton of players that are rich that literally just give you money, like for no reason, and it's quite easy to make money once you know how to do certain things. Like even if you chest run normal mode and were showed how to post on Legacy and how to sell on Commodon, you could make profit pretty easily. Aside from that, though, in order to make money in the game, you generally have to trade other players. There aren't like the only way you could really make money is, like I said earlier, ecto farming and selling it to the material trader. If you want to never trade other players, because aside from that, you have to trade other players to make money. So if the player base died, I could see the economy getting in trouble, but the player base seems pretty stable, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. I'd like to see some quality of life updates for the game, though. Maybe to bring back some new players, maybe rework some skills or buff some things that are terrible. I think that would be a good thing. I don't think anything really needs nerfed right now, but it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to buff some terrible, useless skills. Just, that's almost not merch food. I would say like 15 in a stance Q9's very hard to sell. So it's basically merch food, but yeah, that's it for this video. If you found this enjoyable, or if you want to add anything, what do you think about the current state of the Guild Wars economy? Do you think it's healthy? Do you think it's unhealthy? Why or why not? Do you see anything crashing or not in the future? I've just noticed that it can be very hard to buy and sell things, even things that are clearly good or like clearly worth a lot of money. And just noticing how long it can take people to buy and sell like BDSs and like commonly traded items, like to me is kind of like an indicator that maybe we're headed towards like this like more long form market where if you want to buy or sell an item, it'll take you like a week to a month, which is okay, especially with Commodon chat and Guild Wars Legacy. Like you can afford to post items on like Guild Wars Legacy and eventually you will usually find a buyer. But like if more and more people start using Legacy, it'll become harder and harder to find things. And we might need some kind of trading post. I guess that might be the point of this video. It might help to get a trading post where you can like list an item for sale and maybe even do like auctions like on Legacy with like reserve bids and like a buyout and shit like that. So if you had like an item you only wanted to sell for 5k, you could just put it buyout 5k, for example. Or if you had like a really rare OS item, you could list it and people could browse by like skin. Now obviously this would be an undertaking for the devs, which I think is a skeleton crew. So I don't know that we'll get this update, but it'd be nice, you know. I mean, if they wanted to start selling cosmetics, like different hats and gloves and shit that have cool effects, I'd buy them. I'm sure most people would too. If they want to try to monetize this game's following. Because, like, you know, just on this account, I have 600 hours. So I've only paid, like, I don't know, $80 for the factions plus the mercenaries or something. So I wouldn't mind paying, like, you know, $2 to $5 on, like, some cool glowing hat or some shit or whatever, like unusuals in TF2. But yeah, let me know what you think about the Guild Wars economy, where it's headed. If you've been like a long time trader, definitely, you know, drop a comment. I'm curious to see what other people think about the economy. I just noticed that it's been harder to buy or sell things, so it's not even like it's like a buyer's or seller's market. It's specifically this dynamic where if you're buying something, it's usually a seller's market, and if you're selling something, it's a buyer's market. So, like, because of the scarcity and how hard it can be to find things. Like, I found a dude paid me 50 ectos for a 2010 Q9 Illusion Celestial staff because he was buying it for, like, a month. This is not a rare staff. This is not worth 50 ectos either. And he's also paying 50 ectos for a 2010 Celestial Q9 Dom, which, you know, is also not a rare staff. Like, if you run Celestial, you'll get Q9. You'll get a few Q9s out of 100 picks. Easy. 2010s. Website type /age. So yeah, if you like Guild Wars content or like discussion type content, definitely sub to this channel. Liking the video helps. I make a lot of Guild Wars stuff. Definitely drop a comment what you think about the Guild Wars community and the market specifically, like where it's headed, if it's going anywhere. If you think it's in trouble, or if you think it's fine. I think overall it's fine, but it just takes a while to sell things. And when you do sell them, you tend to make more money than you did back in the day. I think when we had a healthier player base, because I played this game in 2006, I think when we had a healthier player base, things were much cheaper. Q8s were very cheap. Back in the day, you could get a Q... I remember getting a Q8 What was it? Dark bow or shadow bow or whatever the hell. It's like a recurve shadow bow from like the underworld or something. I got a Q8 15/50 for 80k. And like nowadays that's like arm braces. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the economy's scarcity is a good thing strictly for chest runners, for playing the game in general. You do Vanquish, you open a chest, maybe you get some crazy OS drop that's worth like 20 arm braces. Like that could happen. That really can happen. That I've seen that happen to people where they'll get some crazy rare thing, and they're like, "How much is this worth on Legacy?" And people are like, "Oh, around 20 to 40 arm braces," and they're just like, "Sweet," So like, I don't know. Maybe item scarcity is a good thing. Maybe it actually does heavily incentivize everything. Like you can make easy money doing DOA because an arm brace is like 60 ectos, which is crazy because that's 600k. Like an arm brace is 600k. You can make like 300 to 400k an hour doing DOA SC alone, and then chest running, you get a big drop, and you're basically rich. So you get a Q8. If you get a Q8 with a max mod, and the Q8's max too, like a Q8 caster sword or something, from chest running normal mode, like you'll make a shit ton of money. Like more than you even know what to do with it. And that's where I'm at right now with my, like I have like, I don't know, like 12A roughly in my bank, which is not a ton, but considering how I had like 100k a few months ago just from chest running. So yeah, that's it for this one. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you in another video.